YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back, and the green screen headband is back as well. And here we are after a wild Thursday night game between the Bucs and the Bears. The Bears pull off another squeaker. Feels like every Bears game is an absolute wild one. Very entertaining. I'm here to give you my takeaways, give you the recap here, my thoughts on the game, what went wrong, what went right, what to expect. We do this video every single Friday for the Thursday games. On Monday, recap the Sunday games, and we got power rankings, predictions, score predictions, everything. We got you covered. Please subscribe. Trying to reach that 60K subscriber goal somewhat soon here. We much appreciate if you can help us out. That Twitter, live tweeting during games just like this, every game. So follow that Twitter, constant NFL talk, news, breaking news, talking about the channel. Instagram, podcast, Patreon, we got you. Check it out. Link down below for anything you may need. Right before my takeaways, Patreon. Bunch of extra content, actually added more this week. Junior score predictions for week 5 already up. My lock/bets of the week already up. I also have something new, an upset watch. I take every underdog and give you their chances to win. Maybe that could help with a money line bet. The Bears were an underdog. I did have them pretty high up on that, chances to upset. So really enjoying making that new upset watch every week for the underdogs. Couch Ball score predictions already up. I have my money line against the spread picks now for Couch Ball as well. Updated playoff predictions will start in near future. Bonus content, Discord access, much more. Always adding more, like I said. A lot of content going on there. So check it out. Link down below. A lot of people getting involved. Appreciate you. It's showing some great support there, so we appreciate you very much here at the Goat House. 20-19, an absolute squeaker. The Bears pull it off again, another wild game. And some things about the game that I want to talk about first. Number one, if you watch my score predictions, I really break down the games in depth. Especially for this week. If you look at this game, I predicted the Bucs to win 26-17, and there we are sitting at 19-17 late in the game. And I'm feeling pretty good. Let me tell you, I'm feeling pretty good. It's looking like a 26-17 final exactly. But the Bears defense clutches up. They step up. You got to give credit to the kicking. Kicking too. They made their kicks. Santos making his kicks. And that last one, it looked like it was about to shank left, just whip right back. So I know some Bears fans probably expected a miss, and their stomach probably dropped, their heart probably dropped to their stomach. At that moment too. Pretty wild game. Another one of those Bears games like that. But in my kind of predicting how the game would go, I predicted the Bucs would kind of move the ball somewhat easy against a pretty good defense into Bears territory, but then kind of get shut down and mainly kick field goals. The reason I had 26, and that kind of happened. I expect the Bears run game to kind of get shut down. Basically, for many of us, the game prediction, the game was kind of going to plan. Everything was going to plan, but I think the Bears defense and just some big plays they made really slightly changed that. And once again, I think for the most part, Bears games have been kind of going to plan, except they pull it off in the end. An absolutely wild ride, very, very entertaining here. Another thing I want to talk about, people, it feels like most of the football world, versus Bears fans, I guess except for Bears fans, still doubting the Bears a little bit, still, kind of iffy on them, kind of saying, how are they 4-1? And then my stance on that is kind of been with them. I don't want to go full in by their record. I'm kind of being a little cautious. Are they the real deal? But now, they continue to pull these off and trying to figure out a reason how they're pulling these off. And that's the first thing listed there. I think the Bears got some dogs. They don't have the most talented team, but they found the guys. We talk about the Colts defense too, a similar thing. Like they found a group of guys that, have the chemistry, that play together as a team, that just want to hit, they want to hit, they want to play, they want to win. They have, I think they have the right leaders in there. Everything that goes into that. I think they have the right football players. You got to respect some dogs, some football players there. And I trying to figure out how the Bears pull this off, and I think that plays a big part. They got the right pieces in there to come back, to pull it off. And yeah, people kind of get on them a little bit. How did they win all these games? Maybe they got a little lucky in the past, and maybe they did. It's part of football. Looking at the Swift drop, looking at some injuries kind of favored their side. And then that kind of continues to roll. Two things here. If you continue to do that, it starts really not to be luck anymore. It starts to be they're just finding ways of getting the job done. And how is that? Again, I think it goes into those players they have getting the job done, But another thing is I always wake up after the Thursday night game and kind of just think, have more takeaways, think about the game a little more. And I don't really think, this one, even though it was crazy and maybe you can think, how did the Bears pull that off? It really shouldn't be too much like that, actually. There wasn't that much luck involved at all. You look at the positives versus the negatives. I thought the Bears, and there was a lot of things for the Bucs that were very close to going their way, but I think most of them did not, and that could have ended up being more positive. But for the most part, the Bears, in terms of the players, in terms of units, in terms of how things went, they definitely had more positives in this game compared to negatives, and then the Bucs had. So I thought really the Bears kind of outplayed them in a way. When you're looking at the other games, it was a wild finish like the other games, but it really wasn't the same. So you got to credit the Bears for those players that they're getting the job done. They know how to get the job done, and just continue to do this, because again, at this point, it's really not. I don't know if some people, if you want to call it luck or not, but when it continues to happen, that kind of, you got to start fading that away. I think they just know how to pull games off. Maybe that's the main thing. It's a tough team here. But, the game kind of went as expected almost. It's just the Bears pull it off. I look back, kind of goes unnoticed to that first drive, very first drive of the game for the Buccaneers. They were moving the ball with ease, with absolute ease, and everyone's got to be thinking, at least I'm thinking, there's 7 points. Like, there's 7 points coming up on the board here, and they didn't get that. And I think that was crucial. That first drive could make the statement of the game, and they end up with 3 instead. They were moving the ball. Still a really good drive. They were moving the ball very well, and just really couldn't pull it off. You credit, there was a drop, but I think Roquan Smith got there and made the play on that first drive, so that was huge, kind of a diving play. Maybe the ball should have been caught, but that's big time. One play that kind of goes unnoticed, one series that may go unnoticed because how much madness was at the stretch at the end of this game. So I wanted to point that out for sure there. But kind of going to go through the positive negatives I saw for the Bucs. I thought Ronald Jones looked good. That looked like the USC Ronald Jones. Looking the way he was running, the way he was hitting the hole after the hole as well. They could have ran the ball a little more, really. I think he was running good, but I think a big reason he was running so well was that the Bears were fully expecting pass, which was understandable based on what the Buccaneers were doing. But Ronald Jones looked good. He looked pretty darn good in that game. Run defense as expected. They're a very good run defense. Now Vita Vea got knocked out of the game late, so it didn't really affect this game, but it will affect the games coming ahead, which is unfortunate because this is one of the better run-stopping nose tackles in football, and you got one of the better run defenses in football, so that's tough. Run defense really shut it down. It's a positive and a negative in a way for the Buccaneers here because they just shut it down, and why that is so good to stop the run first, it's because you make a team one-dimensional and you can play the pass. And they didn't really do that, though. Nick Foles didn't throw all over them or anything, but you made the Bears one-dimensional and you still lost the game. That's a negative. That's the run defense is a positive, but in a way it's a negative there. I don't know how you can't pull that off when you're expecting pass. And we'll talk about the corners we'll talk about the corners now. I think going into why the corners played negative. That some of the guys stepped up, made some plays. That interception, was a pretty big time play, which I do put a lot on Allen Robinson there. Actually, I don't know why he kicked his legs up. He kind of assisted. In that interception. I can't stand when receivers take their feet off the ground when it's unnecessary. So weird to see that from him. Some just weird moments in general from the star receivers. They're supposed to be star receivers in this game. But back to the corners, and we'll talk about the receivers in a second as well. But corners playing way too much cushion. You were making it so you can play the pass. You stopped the run. You were not fearing the run. So you're playing the pass, but Nick Foles a little off target downfield, and they were beating you up wide open targets, receivers on hitches, short routes, mainly hitches, really what it was. The running backs getting downfield, a little bit of a wheel route from the running backs. But, maybe that's somebody else's other than the corners, but the corners were playing way too far off. It almost felt like they feared getting beat deep, and these guys can press too. I've seen them be physical at the line. So maybe I should blame the coaching staff, defensive coaching staff, a little more to not forcing these corners to go up and press. So now that I'm talking about it, the corners deserve some blame because they were a little soft. And they made some plays here and there, but they were a little soft. They were a little afraid to get beat deep. But I'm actually, might change my mind a little bit here, tweak it a little bit, and say that the coaching staff is a little more to blame. Like, how are you not forcing your corners? Because it's your say. If you tell your corners to go press, they're going to go press. They're not going to listen to you. At least I would hope. So I'm going to put some blame there. Todd Bowles there. You gotta get your corners up, man. You gotta that might have cost them the game. That last field goal the Bears went and got. There was a huge third down, and it was a lengthy third down too, third and long, and they had an out route just wide open, I believe, or it could have been a hitch. It was just on the sideline there. That was just wide open. Like, that should not happen. You're not covering the end zone. You're covering the sticks in closer. So that was just unacceptable. They're absolutely unacceptable. To the receivers, the receivers really couldn't get open. Credit to the Bears' coverage skills in their secondary. We'll give them some credit here soon. We'll get to the Bears' positives and negatives soon. But the receivers couldn't get separation. I almost put Mike Evans here. Mike Evans did not play a good game. He had a touchdown early, a touchdown he should get. Other than that, he couldn't get separation. Maybe he's not an ultimate separation guy. Maybe he's a contested catch guy. So you could say, yeah, the Bucs could have recognized that and taken some more shots. So maybe that's a shot towards Bruce Arians and Tom Brady there. But I don't think Brady would have been hesitant to do that. So I don't know why they didn't take any more sideline shots when they were one-on-one. But Mike Evans really wasn't too good. The lack of separation. That one deep ball that I thought it was a good ball by Brady and Evans, uncharacteristic. We've seen Robinson lift, and Robinson ended up playing very well besides that. But we've seen guys that are supposed to be star receivers do things that NFL receivers aren't supposed to do in general, let alone star receivers. But Mike Evans struggling to track the ball, going right, left. That is like high school mistake right there. I don't think I would have made that mistake if I'm in there. So, I was not happy with Mike Evans in this game. There's some things that are so bad that I see it once that I'm going to remember it forever. And that was kind of one of those things. They were missing Chris Godwin. They really, and I kind of talked about, I think Chris Godwin actually might be better than Mike Evans going this year. And I'm even more confident on that now. Chris Godwin is an easier target. He could scheme things to get him open. He could play outside, play in slot. They missed him desperately. Tyler Johnson looked good here and there. Maybe they could have got him going, but I guess the lack of separation. Yeah, there was just a lack of separation. So that's a knock on the Bucs receivers. That's a positive on the Bears corners for sure. Penalties killed them. You can't have 109 yards in penalties and win the game. Very sloppy. It's still, that's another main storyline here. And I predicted the Bucs to be very good this season. And I predict them mainly to heat up in the second half of the season, play well in the first half in terms of getting wins, but then really take advantage second half of the season. So that's definitely still alive. I still kind of believe in that. Maybe there's very slight more doubt in that, just because can the slop continue? Can the messy play continue? But long term, I'm not really worried, but still another messy, sloppy game, a lot of penalties. Most of these penalties, I agree, they are penalties. There was some crucial ones. There was a missed false start that was actually called offsides in the Bucs that resulted in Bears points, and there was that roughing the passer, which would have forced it was a terrible call. I hate to see that, which would have forced the Bears to punt from their own end. And field position was key in that, because the Bucs would have the ball at midfield, and then later on the Bears ended up with the ball at midfield because of that. So that was actually crucial and could have decided this game in a way, but it doesn't change the fact that the Bears outplayed them in most categories. But the penalties, I think, going back to Tom Brady and why Tom Brady's in yellow here, in kind of in the middle here, is because he had some really good moments. He had some really good moments, especially under pressure. There was sometimes we just had to go down right away because absolutely no shot, and we'll credit the Bears pass rush here in a little bit. We'll get to the Bears, but for that. But then there were some moments where he missed some throws. That first drive, which could have ended up in a touchdown, Brady slightly overthrew somebody. It could have been a touchdown. There was a couple plays like that where that was a touchdown if he wasn't really far off target, but if he was just slightly more on, if he was more on target, bottom line, they could have won the game there. So that was the positives, the negatives. Another thing is, though, people were kind of tweeting out stats that he was 0 for this downfield, and it's not good. Obviously, I think people were overreacting from that a little too much, or getting too much into that, because and he did need to make some of those throws, but then there was some plays that he did hit downfield that actually did not count as well, or there was a miscue by the receiver. I mean, there was quite a few the crazy plays. Look at that drive where the Buccaneers were moving, but everything was getting called back by penalties. Everything. Brady was on that drive. There was some magnificent plays on that drive, stepping up past pressure, past sacks, making these beautiful touch passes, on the move, kind of, running, backpedaling, making these throws. There was quite a few plays that were just elite Tom Brady, vintage Tom Brady, and most of them did not count because of penalties. So that stat where he was 0 for whatever with those downfield throws, it will kind of be misjudged. Maybe you'll overlook, though some things will go unnoticed because of that. But looking at those penalties, yeah, just sloppy play from the Buccaneers. I think all of those in that drive were actually penalties. My only knock is, and something we've seen this year that I've actually applauded, is that the refs were, for the most part, there's been games, moments here and there, but the refs for the most part were pretty consistent. Like if they're calling holding on one team, they're going to call it on, because there's holding on every play. They're going to call on the other team, or they're just not going to call it. But it didn't really feel like, it felt like last year officiating in this game. So that's, even though those were penalties on that drive where Tom Brady was magnificent, the refs were a little, they're definitely off. They were definitely missing some blatant face mask holdings, but then calling some at times. It was weird. You don't really see officiating. It's a weird crew, I guess. You don't really see it like that. But the Buccaneers, just bottom line, can't be that sloppy and win the game. But Brady, I saw some really good, and I saw some, I don't want to say really bad. I guess forgetting the down at the end was pretty bad, but just things that just won't happen in crunch time down the stretch of the season. So I'm not really too worried in that regard. But to the Bears, I talked about the first thing already. The Bears, just having those players to be able to finish, to be able to come back in games, I think is a big reason. So we talked about that. Field position was huge for the Bears. If you noticed, the Bears had really good field position a lot in this game, and every time they scored, they started with good field position. They kind of needed the good field position for the offense to work. Every time they didn't score, it was because, or get any points or be able to move the ball, they didn't have good field position. So having that field position, and credit is due to the defense as well. I think that last, after they, had to punt the ball, kind of pinned somewhat in their own end, pretty close. The Buccaneers, the defense makes them go 3 and out. I think there was a tip ball at the line. So that was big, and that was the reason they got good field position there. But Cordero Patterson was big a lot of time, and the Buccaneers just couldn't kick it out of the end zone. See how important that is. And Cordero was able to get them some good field position, and that helped them get points. You have to get credit there. I think the storyline of this game is field position. I think that is the storyline of this game. When the Bears got it, they scored. When they didn't get it, they struggled a little bit, but mainly the Bucs allowing them to get good field position as well is the story. And there was different ways, so many different ways they got great field position, but they did a lot, and that is the storyline of the game, in my opinion. Khalil Mack, a little quiet early, and I'm thinking Tristan Wirfs. I mean, this guy's a beast, and he is a beast. Rookie, he's holding him down. He was very impressive on him. Mack beats him. Finally gets them, and that's kind of where things turn around. And you see Donovan Smith. I could have put Donovan Smith on their negatives for the Buccaneers too, because he was letting pressure. They realized that Mack, he's playing well against Wirfs, but it's a pretty even battle. Donovan Smith's over there struggling. Let's put maybe the best pass rusher in football on a struggling tackle. So that was very smart. I mean, you don't have to be a genius to figure that out, but that was a good idea. So Mack starts beating Donovan Smith, causing instant pressure, just torching him. He's more athletic. He's stronger than him, beating him. So that was big. So Mack had the pressure, the big plays, obviously. That's what he's there. That's what they pay him for. That's what he's there to do. He had those big-time plays. And it was a little quiet early, but then they really got going. And I will say, I think one reason, main reason he's able to get going because he's really good. Another reason is, the Buccaneers they weren't getting away with their holds anymore. So they started calling the offensive line on that. So what do? You can't really continue to keep holding, or you're going to keep getting called. So you kind of had to block the normal way. It's kind of the offensive line, every offensive line strategy there. They're going to hold until they can get away with it. They're going to try their best to hide the hold. They couldn't really do it anymore. So they had to block normally, and guys like Mack, when offensive linemen can't really do that, they're just plain and simple better. Guys like Khalil Mack. So that is why I was kind of tweeting that too. They were able to continue to get that instant pressure. That was a big reason. So in winning in the trenches, they're winning on the outside with Mack. Kyle Fuller, pretty big game. That forced fumble was huge. I was about to get really angry if they called that a penalty, because that was textbook. Those are the plays that make you get out of your seat, get you excited about the game, and everyone knows what I'm talking about there. That was a heck of a play, forces the fumble. Definitely an interesting one that probably could have went either way. That guy said there was a lot of things for the Bucs that could have went either way, and kind of didn't. I think it was similar to the Bears, the Bears-Falcons game. The Bears ended up coming back and winning, but everything, that could have went either way kind of went the Falcons' way, and the Bears still won that game. It was kind of similar that way. A lot of little things, little calls. If it was up to me, I actually agree with the fumble. If I had to decide, I think I agree with the fumble. I think it was a really good play by Fuller, but it was tough. It was so close that's a position where you have to feel for the refs, even though I don't feel for them for most of this game because it was pretty poorly officiated, but because it's such a tough call, especially because you call it incomplete in the first place. You have to figure out, did he catch it? Did he make a couple football moves? And that depends, the football move thing, how many steps, what, your body language, what you do decides that. And I think every crew will be different. To me, he made the football move, actually. He had enough steps. He made the football move. To me, the question was, did he control the ball? The ball was pretty loose in there, but I think he controlled it fast enough while he made the football move. That's why I would decide that is a fumble. But I was actually shocked, even though I agree, but I'm kind of like 51%, 49%, even though I agree with the fumble. I'm actually shocked that they overturned that. But that's a knock I always had on officiating on the NFL, is there's not enough evidence to overturn it, which I think there's always enough evidence. Just make a damn decision. So I do credit, one thing I can credit the refs on is that moment right there, that they actually went down and they made a decision, what they thought was right there. Credit them there, not so much the rest of the game, though. A little sloppy. But that was good. Yeah, Fuller had a big game. Also credit Fuller on, you've seen Jalen Johnson on Mike Evans early. Mike Evans was looking pretty good early. He was getting more separation. That didn't last too long because Kyle Fuller, they went back and forth. They aren't in man coverage every single play. The same guy isn't on them every single play. I think that kind of goes unnoticed for every game, every corner, every receiver. I think people just think, this guy's covering this guy 100% of snaps. Not really the case. But they mainly put Fuller back on Evans rather than Jalen Johnson. And Fuller was, again, why Mike Evans struggled. I think he had a bad game, but I also think you got to give credit to Kyle Fuller. When he was on him, he was very tight, and he's able to kind of keep an eye on the quarterback. At the same time, he's kind of tight with him, so that was fantastic. Foles and Nagy kind of in the middle here in yellow, because Foles started off with a couple pretty bad missed throws early on. But about the same amount of that Brady had. I think Foles were a little more off, I guess, but they were kind of in the same boat at that point. So he just started a little slow. And I think people were kind of getting worried. But it's nothing different in Chicago. I think Trubisky, he's kind of consistently missed those throws, and that's really why he got pulled in the Falcons game. So I think you kind of got to allow Foles to kind of get in his groove, and he kind of did. He kind of did that. He made some throws that aren't easy throws. That Jimmy Graham touchdown, that was a heck of a grab by Jimmy Graham, and I think that play will be known more as, Jimmy Graham made that one-handed catch. But looking at that over and over again, that throw, it had to be in this specific spot, not just in an area, a specific spot for that to even have a chance. And Foles on a dart put it there. Every time I watch that, I'm more and more impressed with that throw. So plays like that, the touch passes, getting the running back out, just going quick. The main thing is the quick reads, just snap. I'm getting pressure. I have to go here, just knowing where to go. And these are things Trubisky cannot do. He's proven he can't do. So Foles being in this game was absolutely huge, because they would not have won. They definitely would not have won this game the other way around, because these throws that only he can make in that quarterback room, obviously other quarterbacks can make it. But mainly the quick decisions. He got accurate, more and more accurate as the game went on. The deep ball, still a little iffy on that, but that's something the Bears have not been able to kind of get going, is big plays downfield. So it's nothing different, but they're able to find ways around that, and he really turned it up. He was smart. That's the main thing. He was very smart with the ball and quick deciding. And again, pretty accurate down the stretch, putting balls kind of where they needed to be. So started off pretty bad, ended up pretty good, helped them win the game there for sure. And then you look at Nagy, and credit to Nagy and the coaching staff, because like I said in the beginning, with how do the Bears kind of close out these games, how do they win these games, I think that, having those players, but I think, Nagy getting these guys prepared, I think he kind of gets them prepared in a good way. They're pretty well disciplined. And then coming back, I think he has the right game plan for coming back and pushing through games. Sometimes when they're tied or they're up, I definitely don't agree with the play calls. There was a questionable call at the end to allow the Buccaneers to have more time throwing the ball on second down, which ended up working. But at the end of the day, it was a pretty bad decision to throw the ball, because if you ran it there, you are able to get the clock to around 30 seconds or so, and the Buccaneers definitely without any timeouts, they don't have any shot. So that was questionable. I don't really agree with it, but I'm not going to rip him as much as other people are ripping him on that play, because if you do get the first down, you win. You definitely win the game. You get a 100% chance. I'd say 99.9% chance. Got to make the chip shot field goal, which you would. 99.9% chance to win the ball game, because then you can run the clock. The Buccaneers they can't use their timeouts anymore. The game's over. So and it's pretty predictable that you run the ball. So in a way, I kind of like it thinking outside the box, but I think the right thing to do was probably run the ball there. But I don't fully get on him for that because of that. So there was moments where you kind of question the play call. Running's not working, and he's starting to drive with a run. There's moments like that. But then again, kind of having the right game plan and getting the guys ready, and some of those beautifully designed plays, to the running back, kind of running those wheels, they were beautiful. He has the playbook. Matt Nagy has the playbook. So there's definitely major, from Foles and Nagy, there's major positives, and then there was some negatives. I don't know if there was major negatives. There was some bad throws by Foles. There was some bad calls by Nagy, but there's only a couple, really, and not like a big sample size, a giant size of them, just a small sample size of them. So, and they weren't major negatives because of that. So I won't, I think mainly positive from those two, I'll say. Yeah, and then kind of back to that with beautifully designed getting the running back out, and beautiful touch passes from Foles, like kind of a wheel route from running backs. There was one crucial one at the end where I think some people wanted a pick play on Allen Robinson. I think that was just a beautifully designed play. I think it's risky because all the defender has to do is actually he could purposely run into Allen Robinson, and they probably call that. Not maybe, or not for sure, but they probably call that. So it is risky, but it's designed and executed so perfectly that it's tough to call it. And again, people will complain because I guess refs being consistent. That's kind of my knock on them too. I agree with a lot of calls, but I think just being more consistent. I guess that matters by the crew. Some people probably call it, but I think it's a beautiful design play. It's perfectly executed by Allen Robinson, David Montgomery, guys like that. Cordero was getting out on a lot of those too. And that's a perfect play for Cordero Patterson. So I think it's just beautifully designed and executed there. So credit to them there. Maybe teams will start the game plan for that, but then hopefully Foles kind of gets, going forward, hopefully gets that downfield throw, that second option going, which he definitely can. More time, he's going to continue to get better here in the system. So teams will start the game plan for that. So that, what they did there. The Buccaneers weren't coming up and pressing. They were kind of playing off cushion. They weren't expecting the expected, even though they're beautifully designed plays, and it's hard to defend them. It was kind of expected at that point. So other teams could press. They could kind of game plan for this. So going forward, they're going to have to make some adjustments, kind of try to execute for that. But again, beautiful designs. Love some of these design plays. Run game was pretty bad. Again, I was saying they missed Cohen. They're going to miss Cohen. They kind of did. Montgomery has these random plays where he's kind of flashy, where he's pretty tough to bring down. But they really just can't get anything going there. There's not enough. They might need more speed. I think that's what it is. They need more speed out of there. But they just can't get anything going. It's kind of a positive and it's a negative mainly, but in a way it's a positive. You were cut to one-dimensional. The game was made harder for Foles in the passing game, and you still won the game. You still had success doing that. So if they kind of could fix some things, they could actually be even better. So in a way, that's a positive thing there. Something I was going to say and I forgot. There's just so much to cover that I forget. They couldn't really get the run game going too much, but you kind of look at all this, everything I summed up, and you see that there's way more positive things to talk about the Bears over the Bucs, and that's kind of the thing I woke up this morning. Last night I'm thinking, man, how did the Bears pull that off again? And it's still kind of crazy, a crazy game in a way. But you start to think about if the Bucs would have pulled that off, you'd be saying the same damn thing. Like, how did the Bucs pull that game off again? How'd they do that? And you look at it as a whole, the Bears kind of just had more positive things here than the Bucs, so it kind of made sense that they won the game here. But pretty wild game, and I think for the Bucs. A positive for the Bucs. It was a negative for this game, but a positive for the Buccaneers is so many things that kind of could have went either way, like I talked about. That literally none of them went their way. None of them. That was a bad thing for this game. It's a positive. So that's probably not going to happen every single week, so you could win a game like that. So many sloppy things, so many penalties, penalty yardage, sloppy play that are almost impossible to win on, and you still had a chance to win the game. Again, you had a chance to win this game. They're probably saying, how we didn't win the game? So it's a negative, but there's things that if you clean it up, things that if they don't happen again, you win. You win these types of games. So I guess you can find a positive there, but the same thing goes for the Bears. If they can if they don't, they were one-dimensional and they still won the game, So, yeah, I'm trying to think if I can remember anything else there. Again, clutch kicking there, making those kicks, a lot of pressure. The defense has really stepped up. The Bears' defense has been good, but it's been a little underwhelming so far because we expect it to be a top tier. I don't want to say elite. I don't know. Last year, I wasn't calling anybody elite. I think the year before I called the Bears and the Ravens elite. Last year, the Niners were really good. Were they elite, though? I don't know if they're elite, so I don't throw that word out, but we expect the Bears' defense to be very good, definitely very great. And we haven't really seen it yet, even though we haven't seen it across the NFL. They still have been one of the better defenses. It's just more of an offensive league. But this game felt like the Bears' defense, so that's good going forward. That was kind of a positive I had the Bears last few weeks. They're winning these games when their defense, they can play better than this. I expect a little more, and they can actually get more going forward, and that's kind of what we saw here. We saw more of that going forward. So, and that's positive for sure there, because they clutched up in this game. They definitely clutched up. Another thing, it felt like the Bucs were able to kind of, the way they were calling plays with the tempo at times, felt like they were able to, it looked like most defenses would kind of get worn down. That's kind of going back to the Dogs part. I think the way the game happened, the way the Bucs were rapidly pushing the midfield, there was never 3 and outs, or the Bears defense had a big one towards the end, but that's kind of where I'm going with this. The way that the things were moving, it felt like this defense should have been worn out, but they just weren't. There's a bunch of dogs that just continue to fight through it, and I think that's why they win these games like this. That's kind of my thinking. Every week, we're like, how do the Bears pull these games off? That's my thinking. But they also had more positives. Good play than bad play. Good play compared to Bucs play. So a mixture of things here. So definitely an entertaining game. Not really with the officials, though. That kind of felt like a 2019 game with the officials, where you got these tight games that are so entertaining, but the officials try to ruin it a little bit. But still entertained, and still hoping to get more of these Bears wild games here this year. But that's going to wrap it up. We can talk more in the comments if you'd like. I always probably forget some crucial big play because there's just so much to talk about. But yeah, we're going to have the same recap for Sunday games on Monday. We got power ranking, score predictions. Schedule could be shifted a little bit next week because there's a Tuesday night game. I really only expect the power rankings to get pushed back, so we have probably to the next day. But that's about it. Hopefully, we'll keep you updated on the Twitter with the schedule. But that's going to do it. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Please smash that like button, subscribe, turn notifications on. I'm probably repeating myself a little too much. But yeah, thanks for watching. Goodbye.